prefer to ride with less electronics?
I would, because personally for me, I'm not big on, I'm smooth with when I get on the gas. A lot of people, they have it set where they can just go back to wide open, and that's one thing about my weight. I'm a bigger guy, taller, even I'm kind of skinny, but compared to those guys, they're little, and compared to the GP, again, they're even way smaller. But I did this interview with Superbike Planet, and I think I nailed it pretty good. Is the GP is very hard because you have so much grip and you have so much electronics that somebody like, Lorenzo and Pedrosa, they get a real big advantage. Where if they took the electronics off and there was a lot more spinning, that lightweight wouldn't help them so much. And somebody like me, it could actually benefit because I can move my weight around quite a bit. But I would prefer less electronics. Obviously, everybody's trying to cut the cost down. It makes racing more interesting. You get to see a lot more sliding, and the way I ride, I think I would benefit a little bit more, from it. But it's, it's also 2009, so they're liking electronics, and it's just a process, and it trickles down to the street. I mean, there's street bikes now that are starting to get, you can change different maps and make it softer, and it's good for that too. So we're kind of working on all the development for that stuff. But I would personally rather see no traction control. Wheelie control is not, too bad. That's pretty cool, but it'd be fun coming out of corners, smoking the tire and things like that. It'd make racing look better and make a guy that can't conserve a tire, or that his bike conserves the tire for him better, makes his a lot harder work. So yeah, I mean, I prefer no traction control for sure.
Last question.
This is your last one.
Yeah, this is my last one. I mean, I've got a ton here. I've written them all down just in case you showed up. If you were to win the World Superbike title this year, how would you celebrate?
Wow.
Be truthful. They would be like, I treat myself to a Snickers and a Diet Coke, and then I would, woohoo, Popper.
That'd be, especially for this year, I mean, being the first year in World Superbike, having some of the bad luck we've had and being able to come back from it. If we win it this year, emotionally, it's going to be the biggest thing I've done. And that night, I probably won't be making too many plans for the next morning because it won't probably feel too good, but you got to enjoy it. You got to, I work a lot with my program, a lot with training, and really dedicated with stuff, but you've also got to get away from it. And when you celebrate, you got to have fun. You can't be too strict all the time or you'll burn yourself out. So I'm sure it'll entail lots of drinks and rough night. So we'll plan on it. You're going to Portugal, so if I win the title, you'll be there, huh? You'll have to. He's all no.
I ain't scared.
Hey Ben, a couple things on. Are you one finger on the brake, two finger on the brake, and how much rear brake are you using?
I used to be all four. Quit doing that, and went to two. Sometimes, depending on if it's a chicane that has the second part of it, it's slowing down, I might use my middle finger, one finger to brake. I have a really bad habit about using the rear brake now. But again, a lot of that was because in the first part of the year, what I said about the electronics, how we had too much. We weren't at that fine line, and a lot of times it was pushing in the corner. And if you watch every left-hand turn, you'd see as soon as I go for the brake and get the bike turned in, my foot's mashing on it, and I never used to use a rear brake. And I don't think it's not a great habit to have because that's almost like a panic. You want to be able to go to it, and it doesn't really do a lot. Like when a lot of corners where you're wheeling out of like Road America up the front straightaway or places like that, a lot of people used to use a rear brake to slow the wheelie down, but I always had an argument that you're slowing the motor down. If you actually can clutch it or you're just better with your hand, it keeps it more smooth. When you're sitting there laying on the brake, it's slowing the motor down. It's not what you want. But yeah, two fingers now, and sometimes one finger, but I don't really have good control with one finger. I squeeze too much or not enough and run off the track. So I usually try to stick with two fingers, yeah.
Yeah, Ben, how on your motorcycle, when you say you go out and you're working on your speed, getting up to speed with used tires. How much is the setup different when you put brand new tires on, the grip and how much does that change your bike?
It can change it pretty bad. It's sometimes you'll have a bike working really good on the worn out tires. You throw a new tire on there and it's good. It maybe sometimes pushes the front a little bit too much coming from the rear, and especially when you put a qualifier on, that really, when you put a qualifier on, the whole bike changes because it has a lot of tendencies it didn't have. It magnifies, or something that was not working good, it all of a sudden works good. So it's, you know, I like to ride on used tires just because it's, if you can go fast with 18, 19 laps, you know what you can do at the end of the race, and it's, yeah, but when you put new tires on, I mean, you can see a second. You can go around and say, oh man, I blew that corner, blew this corner, and then you look at the lap time and it's like, wow. And then it progressively just gets slower and slower. But you know, it's a good habit to not, when I put on new tires, I try not to actually blow out a fast lap. I try to do what I would do in a race, and that's pretty much it. But I mean, for anybody riding on, you know, when you're racing, getting used to older tires and not going out and flogging the thing, but just getting used to that movement is pretty good. I mean, It definitely pays off.
It was really cool watching you here race World Superbike, and I noticed coming out of 4 going down the back straightaway and you were getting into 5, I was noticing you were accelerating and you'd bring the bike over on the side of the tire. Is that to just run that gear all the way out?
Sometimes it's more yeah, I mean, that race was definitely, I was doing a lot of different things because that was the one Michelle was right behind me in. When he would take a 10th out of me, I would put it back on him, and I wanted to keep him at a gap where he was pushing and never could catch me. But he was basically using his tires up, and sometimes if you, in a long corner, if the gearing's low and you can keep it leaned over for a longer period of time, it's on the smaller part of the tire, so it's going to accelerate faster. And the same thing going into a corner, if you tip in and I can get it leaned over, it starts getting into the limiter, which is always a constant speed, where it enters the corner at a constant speed. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, you're touching the limiter, we need to take a tooth off the rear. And I'm like, no, because that'll send me in faster than I want to go. And it's kind of more of a, you know, like a, you know, just a cruise control. You're always the same no matter what, even new tire, old tire, whatever. But yeah, sometimes on straightaways you can keep them leaned over for, instead of really going through the apex fast, you can keep it leaned over for a long period of time and get it to keep accelerating. So especially on a 600, that's when it pays off.
When you fell at Valencia off the front tire, did you just get up in the back of him and not be able to pick up the throttle, or what? I actually had a lot of problems that race because we went out and I had an electronic issue with wasn't so much a traction control, it was more the way the mapping was. And when I would, from 13.5 to 14.2, when it got to that RPM, it went from 95% throttle to 20%. So it was making like under 100 horsepower. And I was having a big problem passing people, and Nori was starting to get away, and I was basically just overriding the front tire. We knew before the race something was wrong with the bike on grid. I told him it was my mistake for the crash, you know, that I was just pushing too hard. We had a big problem and got in there, and what I was planning on doing is that little short chute that has that hairpin right after that. I just got on the back of Max, and I was going to get a good drive out brake him into the next corner, and I just picked up the gas too soon, and the front went, and I tried to save it, but as soon as it hit the cases, it was done. So that was just one of those things. The first 5-6 laps, I was way overriding the front tire, and it was, you know, I made a mistake. I should have just chilled back and stayed in third, but, you know, sometimes you have to go for it, and, you know, I went for it and made a mistake. So.